Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really fundamental conflict, the power of something written down versus the power of a story that's told out loud. We're going to explore this clash between what we could call paper truths and living words.
So let's just start with this question because it gets right to the heart of everything. What's more powerful? Is it the words set in ink or the story that's carried in someone's memory? Is truth something that's supposed to be frozen on a page, or is it something that lives and breathes and even evolves as it's passed down? And this isn't just some philosophical debate, believe me, it has huge real-world consequences.
Okay, so let's start with what most of us know best, the written document. We're going to look at how Western legal traditions try to, well, lock down meaning, using things like treaties and contracts.
The key idea here is what's called codified language, and the goal, really, is to create one single, unchanging source of truth. The words are arranged in this very systematic way, and they're designed to be permanent, to mean the exact same thing yesterday, today, and 100 years from now. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because you see the problem right away. Let's take a real historical example, a treaty from 1868. This document was supposed to be a permanent binding agreement, but it was written in a language that many of the people signing it couldn't even read. I mean, the power imbalance is baked in from the very first word. So you have to understand that this treaty, what our source material calls text A, it has some very specific qualities. It's legalistic, it's static, which just means it doesn't change, and it's super rigid. And maybe most important of all, its entire worldview is built around the idea of property. You know, who owns what and where you draw the lines on a map.
All right, so now let's completely switch gears. Let's talk about a totally different way of keeping track of history. Instead of a vault full of paper, imagine a living library where history isn't on shelves, but carried inside of people.
And here, you can just see the difference so clearly. We can now fill in that other side of the chart. Oral history, or text B, isn't static, it's living. It's not rigid, it's adaptive, it can change to include new understanding, and its focus isn't property, it's relationship, the connections between people and the land and the stories themselves. It's not verified by a signature, but by the collective memory of an entire community. You know, this simple line really sums it all up. A written treaty is an object. It's static. It doesn't change. But an oral history, that's an event. It's a living, breathing interaction every single time it's told. This African proverb is quoted a lot when talking about oral traditions, and for good reason. It just perfectly captures both the incredible value and the heartbreaking fragility of this way of knowing. Every elder holds unique knowledge, a history that might not exist anywhere else, and when they're gone, that knowledge can be lost forever. So, what happens when these two totally different systems of truth are forced into the same room? Well, that collision usually happens in one very specific place, a Western courtroom. And this right here is the absolute core of the conflict. The legal system is built on that codified language we talked about. A signed document, that's seen as physical, objective proof. But a spoken history, testimony passed down through generations. In court, that's often just dismissed as hearsay, unreliable, subjective, and basically inadmissible as evidence. You can see exactly how that systemic bias plays out. Step 1, the piece of paper is held up as the undeniable truth. Step 2, the generations of community memory, of living history, are just waved away. For cultures that have relied on oral tradition for thousands of years, this creates this massive, almost insurmountable legal disadvantage. But listen, don't think for a second this is just some dusty historical problem about old treaties. This exact same conflict about who owns a story and what actually counts as proof is playing out right now in modern struggles for sovereignty. Just look at how we handle ideas and stories. Western copyright law says an individual author owns a story for a certain amount of time. But many indigenous laws work on a principle of custodianship. It's not about ownership. It's about a community having the responsibility for a story, forever. It's about being a caretaker. These are just fundamentally different ways of looking at the world.
And this modern fight has a new vocabulary. You hear terms like rhetorical sovereignty, which is the right for a people to tell their own story, their own way, and data sovereignty, the right to control their own information. But it all comes down to one central idea, the power to control your own narrative. It's the modern version of that same conflict from the treaty table.
So we end right back where we began, with a question I want to leave with you. If your entire culture, your identity, your claim to your land,
If all of it existed not in books, but in the memories and stories of your grandparents, and a court of law told you that those stories were worthless, how would you prove you exist?